is Around the House with Kay and Tom. This morning I'm just going to fix some turkey dressing. Thanksgiving's rolling around the corner. And so what we're going to need is we're going to need cube stuffing. I got the herb stuff in here. I've got the cornbread stuffing. You can also buy different flavors, different kinds. We need 2 eggs, an onion. We need 3 stalks of celery, 1½ sticks of butter. We also need 1½ cup of chicken broth, and our onions, we need a ½ cup of onions. So we're going to mix it all together. I've already cut my stove on to 350, and we have a dish that we want to put our dressing in. So the first thing I need to do is I need to get my celery and my onions cut up. I always just like to slice mine a little bit before I start cutting, and then that way you don't have to cut quite as much. Again, this is Around the House with Kay and Tom. I appreciate you looking at my channel, commenting on what you see. And if you haven't already subscribed, I do hope you will subscribe. People from North Carolina to come down for Thanksgiving. I first didn't know whether or not I was going to do Thanksgiving this year or go somewhere else. But after talking it over, everybody, we decided this would be ideal for us to do. You cut up 3 stalks of celery, which should be about 1 cup. I had already cut up 2 stalks. I've got a cup of celery, and we need to have ½ cup of onions cut up. And we need 1½ sticks of butter. So I'm going to go ahead and put this on the stove and let it be melting. Okay, now I'm going to take all my ingredients and mix it together. You need 2 eggs. I always try to beat up my eggs just a little bit when I'm mixing them in with something. So I have all my ingredients here. I have a cup of celery, ½ cup of onions, 1½ cup of chicken broth, 2 eggs, and 1½ sticks of butter. So we'll just mix it all together. Before we get it all mixed together, I'm just going to go ahead and spray my dish that I'm going to put it in with a little Pam. We'll just set that aside for just a second, and we'll get everything else in the bowl. Pepperidge Farm cornbread, classic cornbread stuffing, and I have a bag of Pepperidge Farm herb seasoned stuffing. Mix everything together. And again, Around the House with Kay and Tom. I've got my stove on heating at 350. I've melted 1.5 sticks of butter. We'll just pour that in there. And let's just stir this together just a little bit. And it calls for 1½ cups of chicken broth. And I have noticed that sometimes 1½ cup is never enough to get it wet, like I like it wet. And I really don't think it's going to be enough today. So let's just change that right quick. And let's just add some more. I'm just going to add another cup. That's a lot better. So we'll get this all stirred up together. We'll put it in our dish, and we bake it for 30 to 35 minutes covered. So get you some aluminum foil and cover your dressing and let it cook for about 30 minutes. And then look at what you got. And then you would want to take the cover off and then let it brown just a little bit on top. And then you have you some really, really delicious dressing. And what I usually do is just let it cool enough to be able to slice it or cube it in the pan, and then people can get just as much as they want. And this is really good. Tom used to like it a day or 2 after it's done been cooked. He'd always say, "Don't throw away the dressing. I'll eat what dressing is left." And he always did. So we're just going to put this in our dish. And like I say, just make sure that it's wet. You don't want it to be dry. I know this cornbread stuffing Really soaks up the broth that you put in it. And I know a lot of people, they just take stovetop dressing and just put it together, and that's good too, but there's nothing like homemade dressing. It's all mixed together. I'm just going to put it in our dish. And don't forget the butter. Make sure you put the butter in there too. Like I sort of need to mash it down in your, say I used 1.5 sticks of butter, 9-inch Pyrex. Smooth it down just a little bit. And this is just some simple dressing that you can make. You can actually make this a day ahead, which is a good thing. And just reheat it, because if you like I'm going to be, it's going to be a lot of things you need to make a day ahead, so you'll have room in the stove. So what I'm going to do is get some aluminum foil and cover it up. This is actually my mama's recipe. My sister came from North Carolina and brought me some cookbooks that was at mama's, and this was one of her recipes that was in there. And I can remember I always liked her dressing. So, now we're going to put it in the oven and cook it for 30 minutes. And then I'm going to take the top off and cook it for probably 15 more minutes and let it brown on top. And everybody knows, if you look at my channel a lot, that I am a firm believer in a timer. So I've got it set for 30 minutes. Okay, my timer just went off. It's been cooking for 30 minutes. Let's just see if the celery and all is, boy, that's very soft. Not bad at all. I think I'm going to put it back in the oven and cook it for 15 more minutes before I take the top off of it. But the celery is done. It's not crunchy. And so is the onions. But I just think it needs to be just a little bit doner. So I'm going to cook it for 15 more minutes. Okay, I let this cook an additional 15 minutes. So instead of 30, I've let it cook for 45. Oh, it even looks better. It really does. So in the meantime, I'm going to put it back in the oven and leave the cover off of it so it'll brown on top. But it really looks good. Okay, I have now taken this out of the stove after I took the top off and let it cook for 15 more minutes. And it really turned brown on top. It really looks good. So I'm just going to cut me out a little bit. I should have let it cool just a little bit more and it would have come out really smooth. And it really came out good. I put me some cranberry sauce on here because I happen to like cranberry sauce. And I'm going to give this a try. Again, around the house with Kay and Tom. This is just some cornbread, herb seasoned stuffing, and it's real easy to make. But I did cook it 45 minutes instead of for the 30 because I didn't think it was quite as done as I like it. But again, around the house with Kay and Tom, please subscribe and come back to see me. And happy Thanksgiving. This is the way the dressing turned out.